Welcome back. Today, we are going to learn the taxi and takeoff procedures of the JF-17 Thunder. As with the previous cold start lesson, we will follow the standard procedures described on deck as user's manual. Once you are ready to start, press spacebar to continue. If it's dark, turn on the flashlight, with left Alt+L, or click on the flashlight at the rear of the right console. Press spacebar to continue. If you start up the Thunder in the dark, you may need to set up the cockpit lights. Since it is daylight in this training, we will just turn on the instruments lights and console lights. Check that the INS knob is in nav, and that the multifunction displays in HUD are operating normally. Press spacebar to continue. Now we will check that the FCS automatic takeoff trim is active. On the left MFCD, click on its menu button. Next, click on the data button. Now, click on the FCS button. Check the FCS diagram and make sure that the P circle is filled and not hollow. This tells us that the FCS automatic takeoff trim is active. Press spacebar to continue. The data transfer cartridge, DTC, contains data for navigation, armament, electronics warfare, etc. Usually, this cartridge is loaded during the cold start procedure, but today this was not done, so we will have to do it now. Insert the DTC cartridge on the slot at the right. Click on the cartridge again, to load it onto the reader. Once properly inserted, the left MFCD will automatically show the DTC page, with the DTC locked message across it. Press spacebar to continue. On the left MFCD, click Alt to select all the data contained on the cartridge. Now, click ENT to load. The loading process lasts several seconds, during which the message DTC trans will be shown. Once the loading is finished, the message DTC lock will appear again. Press spacebar to continue.
Warning.
When we load a data cartridge, the aircraft's mission computer updates its stores database, with the details of the weapons that we now have on our pylons. The alarm that you hear, and the config light on the warning panel, tells us that the FCS is not properly configured for the current loadout. Place the AAAG and AG1 AG2 switches, on the correct settings for our loadout. Press spacebar to continue. Check that the external lights are set as desired. Usually, they are set to flash when parked or taxiing, and switched on to steady after takeoff. Press spacebar to continue. Check that the parking brake switch is set to norm, and that the front lights are set to taxi. Press spacebar to continue. On the UFCP panel, confirm that the waypoint advance is set to auto. Press spacebar to continue. Check that there are no lights lit on the warning panel, on the bottom right side of the front panel. Press spacebar to continue. On the status panel, at the top right of the front panel, check that the pitch trim, roll trim and yaw trim indicators are lit. Press spacebar to continue. On the status panel, check if the nose wheel steering, NSW, indicator is illuminated. If it is not, then activate the NWS on the HOTAS, or press left Alt+D. Press spacebar to continue. Before starting to taxi, we should contact the Air Traffic Controller, ATC, and request clearance. We will begin by tuning the COM1 radio to the ATC frequency, following the same procedure that we did on the previous lesson. Today we are at Senaki Kolki Air Base and its ATC frequency is 132 MHz, corresponding to the preset 049. Press spacebar to continue. On the UFC panel, click on the RTN button. Now, click on the arrow button next to the COM1 display. The remaining displays will show the current radio parameters of COM1. Click on the arrow again, to edit the selected preset of COM1. Once you see a cursor blink, use the UFCP keypad to enter the desired preset, on this case 049. Once done, click the arrow button once more to apply the input. Press spacebar to continue. OK, now that the radio is tuned to Synaki's ATC, click on the HOTAS COM1 button and the communications menu should appear on the screen. Click on F1 to request taxi clearance. After a few seconds, ATC should answer. Take note of which specific runway you are assigned. If ATC does not answer, it might be because there are other traffic on the taxiways. Wait a bit and it will clear you out as soon as the taxiways are free.
1-1. Request taxi to runway.
Press spacebar to continue.
Enfield 1-1. Hold position. 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 Enfield 1-1. Continue taxi.
Now that we've been given permission to taxi, center the rudder and smoothly increase throttle until the aircraft just begins to move. Press the wheel brakes, W key, to test that they do work. Then, resume the taxi. The runway assigned by ATC is runway 27. So, turn to the left and proceed towards the first taxiway. On the next taxiway, turn to the right. Proceed straight ahead, until the end of this taxiway. On the next taxiway, turn to the right. Stop the aircraft near the runway, but do not enter onto it, as we have to contact ATC first. Click on the HOTAS COM1 button, to get the communications menu. Click on F1 to request takeoff clearance. Wait until you get clearance. Press spacebar to continue.
Call key. Infield 1-1. Request taxi to runway.
Enfield 1-1. Cookie, clear to taxi to runway 27.
Call key. Infield 1-1. Request takeoff.
Enfield 1-1. Cookie, you are cleared for takeoff when ready. Climb 300 at QFE 29.88.
Enter the runway and carefully align along its center line. Use the HUD cross to align, placing it over the far end of the runway. Press the brakes and hold the aircraft for a moment, to review the takeoff procedure. This is the takeoff procedure that we will use. Press spacebar when ready to take off. OK, hold the wheel brakes. Increase throttle to 80% RPM. Check instruments and alerts. If everything is OK, release the brakes and accelerate to 100% RPM. Disable the nose wheel steering, as we are over 50 knots. Use rudder inputs to stay on the center line. 120 knots, pull back softly on the stick until the aircraft's nose touches the 10 degrees attitude line. Lift off. Do not exceed 10 degrees attitude. Retract the landing gear. Do not exceed 300 knots with the gear down. This training session on how to perform the taxi and take off on the JF-17 Thunder. You may now press escape and exit the training.